All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to part 2 of the MD-80 tutorial. I apologize it's taken so long to get this second part out. Like I said in the original tutorial, at the time I didn't have time to do the whole flight, so I at least wanted to get the startup to take off going. And today we're going to do the landing. So you're jumping in here at our cruising altitude, 25,000 feet over northern Texas. We're flying to Tulsa. Same flight that we started in the takeoff from Dallas to Tulsa here in the American Airlines MD-80. And as you can see, we're coming up on our top of descent. So right now we're perfectly configured for cruise. Everything's looking mighty fine up here. So first things first, we're going to jump into Navigraph and take a look at the weather here in Tulsa and see what the winds are doing. So it looks like the winds are 270 at 3. So we'll take a look at Tulsa here in Navigraph. The winds right now are 270 at 3. And Navigraph has us planning to land runway 18 left, which should work perfectly fine. That's what we planned in sim brief. 18 left is a longer runway here. So we'll jump into our approaches here and see what options we have available for 18 left. So I'm thinking we'll go ahead and take an ILS. And yeah, we'll do it from the Tulsa transition from a VOR. So we'll go into a hold and then come in and land off of that. So let's go ahead and get that plugged in. It'll be the ILS 18 left from the Tulsa transition. So what we'll do is we'll jump down to our FMC down here, go to departures and arrivals, pick 18 left, Tulsa transition, and execute that. So if we come back to our routes, our active legs page, we should have that in here. From Tulsa, we're going to hold at Owasso, or Owasso, and that's where we'll pick up the ILS into Tulsa. So just go back to the Prague page. So now we can get our frequencies plugged in for what we're going to need. So the ILS is 109.7. So we'll get that plugged in up here into our VHF nav. Did I just say nab? Nav. And then 180 into our course. And now our ILS is set up, and you can see down here we have lock fail and glide slope fail. That's just we're not close enough to the airport yet to pick up our localizer and glide slope for the ILS. Looking more at the chart here, for the ILS, we have our decision height. Since we can't do a baro decision altitude in the MD-80, we have to do the decision height. That's going to be 200 feet. We have an airport elevation of 678 feet. And then our intercept altitude for the ILS is going to be 2,400 feet. So that's all stuff that we're going to put in real quick. First up is our decision height. We'll go ahead and pop that in using this dial right here. We'll scroll that up to 200. There we go. Our decision height's in. For our landing altitude, we'll go ahead and put in 600, probably about 660 feet there. That should get us close enough. Do 680, that's a little bit closer. And then this millibars here, for some reason my plane is stuck in the metric measurements for everything. The millibars, if you can get that to the system that you're using, like if you're flying anywhere that's not the United States, you can put in your landing baro here. I'm not going to worry about it because I don't know what the altimeter would be in baro. I can't do that conversion in my head. I guess we can put it in once we get a little bit closer and we'll have it programmed here. But we're coming up on top of descent. You can see it's telling us to reset the MGCP altitude. So we'll come up here and we're going to put in our intercept altitude for the ILS of 2,400 feet. And we'll go ahead and put 3,000. Should work just fine for us. And now that we have that put in, it will intercept and grab our vertical deviation and start our descent with VNav once we cross this top of descent. All right, we're coming up on 18,000 feet transition altitude here in the United States. So we'll go to our local altimeter of 299.0. So we'll set it once. We'll set it twice down here in the standby. I can scroll to it, and we'll set it again over here in our first officer's side of the 6-pack. And then what we can also see here is 1012 is our HPA, our millibars, so we can set our landing baro at 1012. Again, I can't get the plane to switch over to the imperial measurements. It may be a bug on my side. There may be something I'm missing, but that's just what I'm dealing with on my exact version of the plane. So something else you can also do is we're holding our speed pretty well. We're a little bit fast, but overall I'm not too concerned. But if you want to add a little bit more drag, you can extend the landing lights. Apparently, this is modeled. You probably won't notice this drag that comes off the wings. But if you just extend the landing lights, don't turn them on. You don't have to turn them on. It just drops out the landing lights, and I'll show you what that looks like on the outside here. You can see just right there on the tip of the wing, the landing light comes out. That actually adds drag and can help you slow down. Now that we got the landing lights out, adding a little bit of drag, what we can also do, come down here and get our flaps set up for landing. So we're going to want on our flaps selector, we want 5. So we can select a flaps 5 coming into Tulsa. We'll also go ahead and set up our auto brake. Shouldn't need more than auto brake minimum. Now, we can't arm it until we're fully configured for landing. So, like, you try to arm it right now, it won't let you do it. You have to wait until gear down, full flaps, speed brake armed, all that, and then you can arm the auto brakes. So now with that, it's just a matter of descending down and watching your speed, watching your vertical profile, which is right here, that purple diamond. Making sure you're on profile and just flying down. So another thing I wanted to point out about the MD-80, and you're going to notice this as you're putting in your arrivals and everything. As you can see, our magenta line is a complete mess here. Now the reason for that is it puts in the missed approach as well. So the missed approach for this ILS is a hold at the Tulsa VOR. However, we also have our approach programmed as well. So when you're looking at your nav display down here, don't get too confused or anything. Just keep in mind your legs. We're going to the Tulsa VOR, then Owasso, and then we'll be picking up the ILS. So everything after that is our missed approach, and that's bringing us to the Tulsa VOR. So keep that in mind. You're not necessarily doing anything too crazy wrong if this looks a little confusing down here. It's just putting in the missed approach and your current flight plan as well. So now we're descending through 10,000 feet. We'll get the landing lights on, and something fun you can do in the MD-80 is when you're below 280 knots, you can extend your slats. So we can drop the slats, and it'll give us just a little bit more drag to help us maintain our speed. And the thing about the MD-80 is this thing can practically stop on a dime when you throw out drag. So with the slats extended, helps out a little bit more drag. And then don't be afraid when your slats are extended. You can deploy your speed brake as well. Now I'm not going to do it because we're already at our speed. But I'm going to deploy the speed brake again once we get some flaps out. And the plane will give you a very different reaction. The plane does not like it when you deploy speed brakes with flaps. And that's something that's different than from your A320 or your 737. It's one of the MD-80 quirks. So now we are on our way to our hold before we get onto the ILS, as you can see there. So something we want to think about now is probably slowing down. I don't know why this keeps switching, but I apologize about that. So the way you can slow down and override your FMS speed is press this FMS override button. And it's overriding the speed that's in the FMS, so we can pull our speed back. And it's still on VNAV descent, but it's pulling our speed back. And to kind of help out with our speed here, we'll throw in some speed brake. And you can see our speed will really start to drop off. This is the equivalent of slamming on the brakes in the MD-80. You can see our speed is dropping like a rock. So now we're on our way to the hold. We're going to enter this hold, probably swing around to the right, and then we'll be on the ILS into Tulsa. So now that our speed's getting down, we'll bring the speed brakes out. Then we'll go ahead and get those armed for landing. And now one of our requirements for arming the auto brake is fulfilled. The second one is to get the flaps all the way down to our landing flaps. I'm actually adjusting our bottom altitude here. Can't really go 2,400, so I'm going to go ahead and go to 2,000. Even though it's going to be lower than our intercept altitude, we should still put us in a good position to intercept the glide slope once we get onto the ILS here. All right, so we're flying into the hold right now. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into vertical speed, and then I'm going to help manually descend the plane down to our intercept altitude. So we'll start at about 1,200 feet per minute and see what that does for us. We're flying across the hold right now, and everything is looking just fine. So if you click down here in this area, right below your weather radar, you can pull up your speed card for landing, and it gives you your landing data. And the way you would put this in is you move these bugs over here to where you want them to go. Now, a cheat for this is if you just click on them, it'll deploy them out and put the bugs where they're supposed to go. So your first one here, you want to have your slats down at this speed. That's your clean speed. And then we double check in the, what am I looking for here? Init ref page. Looks like our approach ref for flaps 40, which is what we're going to be using, is 134. This is telling us 136. So that's pretty close. We come over here, and that's roughly this one here. So we're coming out of the hold now. And it looks like it's not flying that hold very well. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go to heading hold. Just press our heading dial here, and we're just going to start swinging the plane around. Now, something to watch out for in the MD-80 is it will not capture the altitude while you're descending. So as we get closer to our 2,000 feet, I'm pulling the vertical speed back, and I'm also going to work on pulling the speed back as well. Let's go for about let's go all the way down to 160. I'm just keeping our heading turning around to get us in a position to intercept the localizer, which you can see down there. Our speed coming back, we're below 210 knots, so we can start throwing in some flaps to help slow us down. So there's flaps 5. We'll go ahead and go flaps 10 as well. That'll help slow us down a little bit, and we're turning to a pretty good intercept here for the localizer. So about a heading of 130 there. Should get us set up pretty well. And we're getting down to the altitude we have programmed here, 2,000 feet. So what we need to do is click Alt Hold. And it'll hold the altitude where you click that at. I clicked it a little bit above, which isn't a problem at all. But you have to click Alt Hold or else it'll descend right through the altitude that you want to go to. So we're back at about 160 knots. Let's go ahead and go flaps 15.
Flaps 15.
Just working on getting the flaps out and ready for landing. And everything is set up and looking pretty good here. So as we're getting closer to our localizer, we can go ahead and arm the ILS, pressing the ILS button. And then I'm going to use the heading hold to kind of help bring our plane into the ILS. So something you'll notice the more you fly this plane is it doesn't have a very wide range for intercepting that localizer. And you'll do a lot of flying through the localizer. So I always like to help the plane, just kind of by adjusting heading, help the plane get in the right direction of the localizer. You can see now it's starting to pick up the localizer. It's turning us to get us lined up, and we're going to see this bottom bar start coming across. Before too long, there it comes. And it looks like it did a pretty good job of grabbing that, which is what we want to see. And we're pretty low on the glide, but it's doing a good job of holding the altitude, and it's going to take just a minute to fine-tune its position on that localizer. This is not the most exact thing in the world, so you got to kind of stay on top of it and make sure it's doing it right. But you can see the localizer coming in, and it should capture that, and we also are visual with the runway ahead of us. So at this point, we could fly visually. We wouldn't have to rely on the ILS, but we'll keep an eye on the ILS here. So outside of that, I usually wait to put the landing gear down until we start picking up the glide slope. That's just my strategy. A lot of people put it down at 2,500 feet. A lot of people do it at 5 miles out. That's just what I do. Is when we start intercepting that glide is when I put the landing gear down. Outside of that, we got all our lights on that are needed right now. We'll put the nose light on once we get the gear down. Everything in the overhead, we haven't had to touch it very much throughout the entire flight, but everything up here is configured and ready to go. And our last thing is going to be arming that speed brake there once we get fully configured for landing. So right now it's just a matter of waiting on that glide slope, which is starting to come through right now. We'll just wait until we intercept that, and then I'll throw the landing gear down. Alrighty, here comes the landing gear. Once that gear goes 3 green, we'll go ahead and put out our landing flaps. So we got 28. We'll pull our speed back to our V approach, which is going to be our V ref plus 5. So in this case, it'll be 138. We'll go flaps 40. So we're at 138. Flaps are fully out. Speed brake's armed. We can arm our auto brake now. So now we are set up. You can see our plane floated up a little bit while we got those flaps out. But now it's time to land this plane. All right, I'm gonna pop the yoke out. We'll take control. So I have control of the plane. You can see our glide slope's going a little crazy there. The glide slope is very sensitive in this plane. So you have to stay on top of that, or else it will yell at you. Got to keep your speed up too. I'm adding some throttle. And pulling the throttle back. Plane has a lot of drag right now, so you got to keep that throttle in. And you're going to notice that the plane feels very sensitive when it's going slow. So you have to kind of stay on top of it. We're getting a little high now, but not too terrible. There's our minimums. We are established and looking good, so we'll continue. Is 50 over the threshold? Cutting the throttle. And setting it down. Our speed brake's deployed. We'll go full reverse. And we're decelerating. At 60 knots, reversers come out so we don't suck stuff up into the engines. And at about 45, we'll tap on the brakes, and that disables the auto brake. We'll exit off to the right here. We'll take this first turn off here. Now what we can do is turn off our landing lights, get our taxi light on. We can turn off our strobe light. If you're a person that's into starting the clock, you can stop the clock down here. And now it's just a matter of disarming our speed brake, bringing up our flaps. We'll get the APU started and find a gate to park at. To start the APU, I usually set up a view about like this here so I can see what's in front of me. Gotta add some power to keep going. Hold the start for the APU until I see that dial up there start moving. And you can see the dial's moving, so our APU is starting. We'll go find us a gate to park at. Then I'll walk you through a really quick shutdown of the MD-80. So we'll pull into this gate up here. Now, I made the disclaimer in my first tutorial. I'm going to make it again. I'm by no means an expert at flying the MD-80. This is just what I do. It works for me. So, if you do something different, or you want to complain to me about that's not the proper way to do things, I just do it the way I've been doing it for forever, and it's worked just fine. It's nice to see Microsoft Flight Simulator still has that issue where sometimes it randomly acts like your parking brake is on, which is kind of annoying. We'll pull up into this gate up here, our Citibank gate. Park it up there. We'll get the parking brake on. See, our APU is on, as we can tell by this blue light where APU power available is, which means we can come down here and shut down the engines. And as our power rolls back, you can see there it switched over to the APU for the power bus. We can get our rotating beacon turned off, and that should be good there. Now, when it comes to shutting down the MD-80, I do just a very simple shutdown for the next pilots coming in. Kind of act like it's a turnaround. So I'll go to the ground services, say they connected the GPU, so that's all plugged in there. Then we come up to the overhead, make sure ground power is available, which it is. And we can do APU master off. And that pretty much shuts everything down. We get our pitot heat off as well. Seatbelt signs off so everybody can get up, and we are pretty much good to go. You can also turn off the fuel pumps as well. I guess those don't need to be on. And with that, we have successfully landed the MD-80. Alrighty, so there you have it. That's landing the MD-80. I hope you all enjoyed that, and I hope it was helpful. Once again, not meant to be a by-the-book operation. This is just what I do, how I fly it, and hopefully it helps you get into this plane, which is really, really fun to fly. It's really different, and it's really fun. And it's different, but it's also kind of similar to like a 737. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Once again, I apologize that this second part of the tutorial took 2 weeks to get out. There was a lot of real life stuff going on. Real life comes first, of course. So thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and feel free to subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, and I really do appreciate it. It helps out the channel. But until next time, you all stay safe, stay healthy, and I will catch you all in the next one. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see ya.